Hey guys, it's Rachel from Hope Corner Farm. By day, I'm a home ec teacher who teaches hundreds of students how to crochet, quilt, sew, and cook. And today I'm going to teach you how to complete the crocodile stitch and crochet. The crocodile stitch is a fun stitch to complete, and it creates such a fun fabric. I just love how this looks. But I will tell you it's a little bit more of an intermediate to an advanced stitch, just because of how you create these scales. Now you need to know how to chain, single crochet, and double crochet to complete this stitch, and those are some foundational crochet stitches that you learn at the beginning. The trick comes in how you place, especially those double crochets, to create these scales. If you're ready to tackle the crocodile stitch, let's grab a hook and some yarn and we'll get crocheting. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the bell so you get notifications of when I post new videos, and don't forget to give me some feedback on this video. Give me a like or a comment, let me know what I did well or things that I could improve upon. So for the crocodile stitch, it's done in multiples of 6 plus 3. So what that means is each one of these scales here covers 6 stitches. So for every 6 stitches, you're going to get one of these scales. So I hope that makes sense. You're going to also need 3 additional chains at the very beginning, and I'll show you why here in just a second. So for my sample here that we're going to work through, I'm going to chain 21. So my multiple of 6 is 18, and then I'm going to add 3, which takes me up to 21. So I'm going to start by chaining 21 here. Now for the crocodile stitch, you do have to know how to chain stitch, how to single crochet, and how to double crochet. If you need refreshers on any of those stitches, I've got links to videos that take those stitches a lot slower there. So I'm going to start by chaining 21. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I've got a chain of 21 and I'm ready to move on to row 1. For row 1, we're going to work our first double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. So that is the chain that I'm working into right there. So I like to put my thumb right at the bottom of it. So 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to work a double crochet into that chain. So I yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through. Now I've got 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that completes a double crochet. So what you're going to find as we go across row 1 is we're going to have 2 double crochets coming out of 1 chain stitch. So what happens here in this very first one is those 3 chains that we skipped are going to count as a double crochet. So I've got 1 double crochet here, and then the one I just created. So that is my 2 together there. So just remember that those first 3 chains that we skipped are actually going to count as a double crochet there. So after I do that, now I'm going to chain 2. So here's 1 and 2. Now I'm going to skip 2 chains, and I'm going to work 2 double crochets into the 3rd. So skip, skip, and into the 3rd, I'm going to put 2 double crochets. So here is 1 and 2. Now I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to skip 2, work into the 3rd, and put 2 double crochets into that 3rd chain. So there's 1 and 2. Chain 2, skip 2 chains. Now I'm going to work into the 3rd chain, place 2 double crochets into that chain. So there's 1 and 2. I'm going to chain 2, skip 2 chains, work into the 3rd, and put 2 double crochets into that. So there's 1 and 2. Chain 2. So chain 2, skip 2 basically. Skip 2, work into the 3rd, place 2 double crochets into it. Chain 2, and then if you did your math right, you should have 3 chains left here, and you're going to skip 1, skip 2, and work into the very last chain and put 2 double crochets into that very last chain there. So here's 1 and 2. And that completes row 1. So you can see here, I've got gaps all the way across. I'll set this down here so I can point this out. So I just want to point out here that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cluster stitches there that I'm going to work with. Row 2 is where we're going to actually get into creating the scales, and this is where the technique gets a little tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by chaining 1. Now instead of turning completely like I traditionally would, I'm just going to kind of look at the side here. So what I'm going to do here to create the crocodile scales is I am going to work 5 double crochets down this side, or this singular double crochet. So I'm going to put 5 double crochets around this double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to work 5 double crochets up this double crochet side. And you'll see what I'm talking about, and that's what creates the scale, going 5 double crochets, 5 double crochets. So we're kind of creating a U here. So where the technique comes in is getting those double crochets in the right spot around this one and around this one. So let's start. So again, I've chained 1. So I kind of turn my work here so I can work around the post of this double crochet here. So I'm going to yarn over. I'm going right into this space here. So again, if I were to do a traditional regular crochet stitch, because I'm a right-handed crocheter, I'd be working this way. So instead, I'm just kind of slightly turning it so I can see this end. So here's what I'm working around. So I'm just kind of turning it. So here's what I'm working around. So I'm just slightly turning it. So I'm going to yarn over. I'm going into this gap here, basically. I'm going to yarn over, pull through that gap. Now I've got 3 loops on my hook, so hopefully you can see that. This is kind of the back side. I'm pulling up here in the front. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2. Now I've got 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and that completes 1 double crochet. I've got 4 more to repeat and do the same thing with. So I'm going to put in 2nd double crochet here, a 3rd double crochet here, and a 4th double crochet. So I've got 4, now I need 1 more, 5. So notice I'm just going into the gap there. So here was that double crochet, now it's covered, and that's the gap that I basically was working them into. Now I need to chain 1. Now here's where the technique kind of comes in a little bit. What I need to do is kind of slightly turn this so I can then work my double crochets around this double crochet. So here's how I traditionally, if I were working a regular crochet stitch again, I would be working up on this edge up here. So I worked actually down the side here. Now I'm turning so I can work and come back up this side. So I worked down, and now I'm going to turn and come back up. So hopefully you can see that. So I'm kind of basically crocheting a U here. I'm going down, over, up. And that, so instead of working on this edge, I'm going down, over, up. So again, I completed those 5 double crochets. I've chained 1. Now I'm ready to work my way up. So I turn my work here, and then I kind of pinch this down here just so I can find my gap pretty easy. So there's my gap. And then I'm just going to place 5 double crochets right there around the post of that 2nd double crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then I chain 1. Now if I open this back up, because remember I kind of folded it so I could work around that double crochet, if I open this up, now you can see the first of my crocodile scales right there. Now I'm ready to move on and create the second one. Now here's another part of what makes this tricky, is I am not going to work around this set of double crochets. I'm skipping over them. I'm going to work into this one to create the next one. So you do not work a scale around every single one of these double crochet clusters. You work it around every other one. So again, I've chained 1 after completing this one. I'm skipping this set right here. Now I'm coming over here. So again, I kind of fold it a little bit just so I can find, again, I'm going to work around this double crochet first. So I'm going right around this one to start the first half of my scale. I pinch my work so I can get that spot, that gap, easy to work around, and I'm not catching anything else. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going right here, and I'm going to place 5 double crochets into that space. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to kind of open it up. Now I'm going to work up this double crochet right here. So I kind of flip it and pin it down, pinch this one double crochet so it kind of creates a loop. So do you see I've taken my work, I fold it in half just so it makes it easier for me to work around this double crochet. I'm going to put 5 double crochets in this spot right here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then to finish that scale, I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to open this back up here so you can see the second crocodile scale that I have now completed. So I've got 1, 2 done so far. So again, I chained 1 to finish that scale out. I'm going to skip this set. I'm going to work around this set right here. So this is the next set. So skip this set of double crochets. I'm working around this set now. So same thing, I kind of like to pinch my work down so I can find just that double crochet. So I've kind of folded, here's my kind of my work. I'm folding it in half and I kind of pull this double crochet up just so I can see exactly where I'm working. I'm working right into this gap right here. And I'm going to place 5 double crochets. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, chain 1, open it up, kind of flip it so I can then get my other double crochet here. So I worked down, coming across, now I need to go up. So now I need to place 5 double crochets around this double crochet. So I'm kind of almost working on the side here rather than the top because I'm going down and up just to create the scales. And that's really what makes this crocodile stitch a little more difficult than some of the others, is just kind of getting that technique to create these scales. Because again, you work down, the chain 1 takes you across, and then you work up. Chain 1 takes you across, you work down, chain 1 takes you across, you work up. Chain 1 takes you across, you go down, chain 1 across, go up. So hopefully that makes sense. So I've got one more scale to complete here for this row, and it's this last spot right here. We're going to work around this one and this one. So again, this is our double crochet, that our very first double crochet that we did, and this is the skipped chains that are counting as a double crochet. So same thing, I kind of fold it in half here so I can pick out just the one. So I just kind of folded that edge down. I'm going to work 5 double crochets around that first double crochet. I'm going to chain 1 to take me across. So now I've chained 1. Now I'm ready to work up this side, which is the chains that are working as a double crochet. So I kind of turn so the back side of my work is showing here, and I'm just going to put 5 double crochets around that. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And that completes the last scale. So if I flip this over here, you can see what it looks like. So I've got 4 scales here that I just created. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm ready for row 3. Now row 3, we're going to create a foundation to work the next set of scales off of. Okay, so we don't work scales into themselves. We have to have a foundation of those double crochet clusters to work into. So I'll show you how we do this. So I'm going to pick up my work here. Now I flipped it to the back side, and I'm going to chain 3. So here's 1, 2, and 3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to work a singular double crochet into this gap right here that was created in the scale. So right here in this gap. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to go here, I'm going to work a regular double crochet. Now I'm going to chain 2 and then I'm going to come over here to this. Now this is the set of double crochet cluster that we skipped from the last round. Now what I need to do is I'm going to put 2 double crochets in between there. Now the key is I need to make sure and catch this space right here. This is the chain 1 space in between the scales. I need to make sure to come below it so I catch that and it all gets pinched together here. So when I put my 2 double crochets here, it's key that I'm catching this chain 1 space right here. So I'll show you what it looks like. Oh, my 1 chain's coming undone. Okay, so let's flip it back here. So I'm going to yarn over. I'm going in between those 2 double crochets. So I'm going right here. I'm inserting my hook. Now I'm making sure that I am below that chain 1 space. So here's that chain 1 space. Here's my hook. It's below it. That way I'm catching it into it, and I'm going to pinch it all together. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull back through. Now I've got 3 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2, and that's 1 double crochet. So do you see how I've caught that chain 1 space now, and it kind of pins that back and helps to hold those scales in place. And then I'm going to put 1 more double crochet here. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to come over to this gap here in the scale itself, and I'm going to put 2 double crochets here. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to skip over here. Now we're to those 2 double crochets that we skipped from the last row. So I'm going to put 2 double crochets in between them. So I'm just going right in here, coming and making sure I'm catching that chain 1. And I'm going to place 1 double crochet and 2 double crochets. Again, that pins that space down right there. Chain 2, come over here, put 2 double crochets in this space right here. Chain 2. Here's those 2 that we didn't work into the last round, so insert right in between them. Place 1 double crochet and 2 double crochets. Chain 2, come over here. Now I'm going to place 1 singular double crochet in this last gap here. I'm going to chain 1 that time, and then I'm going to come over here and right into this stitch right here on the end of, here's my scale, so right into this stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet. So I'm going right here, and I'm placing a double crochet. And that completes row 3. Now we're ready for row 4, and it's another row of scales. One thing I want to point out with the crocodile stitch, is you alternate with rows that have more to less, more to less. So each row is not equal, meaning you don't have the same number of scales in each set. One set of scales will be more, one set will be less, and that's because we offset them. Notice we do not create them directly on top of each other. We alternate and we work them in that gap, and that's what helps to kind of create that scale look. So what we do here is I am going to chain 1, and I'm going to turn. Now, here's kind of the tricky part. I'm skipping over all of this stuff right here. I'm ignoring all of this. I'm coming over here to this first set of double crochets, and I'm going to work my first scale around it. So I've chained 1. I'm coming over here. I'm skipping all of that. I'm coming over here, and same thing. I'm working around. I'm going to go down, across, and up. I'm going to create my scale around this set. So 5 down, chain 1, 5 up to create that scale. So I like, again, to fold my work here so I can just get that double crochet. So I find that double crochet, I kind of pinch onto it, and I fold everything down just so I can see it only and work around it. So I'm going to place 5 double crochets in here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to chain 1 to move across. I'm going to kind of open my work back up and then find the second double crochet of that set. Pinch everything down so I can work just around it. and I'm going to put 5 double crochets around that second double crochet of that set. And then I chain 1 so I can move across. So if I open up, you can see I've created the first scale of this row, and notice it sits in between the 2 scales from the previous round. And I know you're gonna go, well, but your edge comes in. What will happen is when we create the next set of scales, that scale is gonna come and hide this missing stuff right here. So one thing I wanna mention is you're gonna wanna end whatever crocodile stitch project you have with the bigger row of scales rather than the smaller row. So I'm going to skip over this double crochet set here. I'm going to move to this set right here, and I'm going to work 5 down the one side. So there's 1 double crochet, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Chain 1. Fold things down, work around the next set, the other side or the other double crochet, and work 5 double crochets up it. So again, it gets a little harder as you get more to kind of pinch things down and get it in the right spot. So I'm going right here. And here's number 5. And then I'm going to chain 1. We can open it back up so you can see there's the second scale. Now I've got 1 more scale to work here because I'm going to skip this set. I'm going to work around this set. So skip, work around this set. So last row I had 4 scales. This one I'm only going to have 3. So skip, move to the next one here, do the same thing, work 5 double crochets down the 1 double crochet. And here's the 5th one. Chain 1, turn so we can then pick up the next double crochet, and we're going to work 5 double crochets up that side. And there's 5. I'll open this up so you can see what that looks like quickly. So there is my 3rd scale. So then what I am going to do here is I'm going to chain 1. So then what I'm going to do after I've chained 1, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to place a single crochet in the second chain right here. So not that part of the chain. So this is my turning chain from the last row. So 1, 2, right here is where I'm going to place my single crochet. And that completes row 4. Now we're ready for row 5, which creates a base for the next set of scales. And the next set of scales is going to be the bigger set. So what I do here is I pick it up and I'm going to chain 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3, and then I turn. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a double crochet here in this single crochet from the last row. So we're going right here. And that creates our first cluster that will work the first scale around. Now we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to come over here to this gap right here and place 2 double crochets. Oops. Chain 2. This is my skipped or my set that I didn't work into, and just like the last foundation row, we are going to work 2 double crochets in between. So we're going to go right here, making sure we catch that chain 1 from those scales. So we're going to work 1 double crochet and a second one, chain 2, come over to this gap, put 2 double crochets into it, chain 2, come over here. We're going to work 2 double crochets in between that double crochet set. So we're going right here. 1 and 2, chain 2, come over here to this gap, work 2 double crochets into it, chain 2, And then we're going to come over here, and it's kind of hard to see. So this is where that scale kind of worked over. So what we're going to look at is right here into this space. So this was the chain. So we're looking right at the top right here is where we're going to work our last 2 double crochets. So we're going right here. And we're going to go 1 and 2. And that completes row 5. Row 6 is our last new row. Now row 6 is basically like row 2. The reason why I call it a new row is row 2 was worked into that very first foundation chain that we created off of the chain stitch. So I just wanted to make sure that you could see exactly what it looks like to do the row 6 here. Because from here on out, you're going to alternate rows 3 through 6. So you're going to go 3, 4, 5, and 6 and keep alternating through those to create your rows of scales for as long as you need. So what we're going to do here is we're going to chain 1, and we're going to just slightly turn because we're going to work down this side. So again, we're working around this set right here. So we're going to work down this side first. So I just kind of slightly turn it like this. And I'm going to put 5 double crochets around that double crochet there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to chain 1. We're going to flip our work here. So now you can see this would be our traditional top edge. I've worked 5 down. I've chained 1 so I can move across. I'm going to fold this down and pick up this double crochet, and I'm going to work 5 double crochets up it. Now we're going to chain 1. So if I open it up, so I just wanted to point out, remember last row I said you weren't even going to really see that spot where it moves in because this scale sits down on top of it, so it kind of covers it and makes it look more even on the edge here. So I've created that first scale. So again, I've chained 1. I'm going to skip over this set. I'm going to come over here and work on this set. And just like I have been, I'm going to kind of fold it in half so I can pick up that 1 double crochet. And I'm going to work 5 double crochets around it. Chain 1. Kind of open things up, pick up the next double crochet, and work 5 double crochets up it. Chain 1, skip over this, go to the next set. Work 5 double crochets down the one side. Chain 1, pick up the second side and work 5 double crochets up it. Chain 1. We'll open this up so you can see that. So we've created 3. Now one of the things I want to point out is that foundation set, so rows 3 and 5, they really help to kind of pin these scales down so that way they stay put. So now I've got 1 more scale to work here. I'm going to work it around this double crochet and that chain. So I'm coming over here, same thing, I'm just going to work around the 1. We're going right into this space right here and go 5 double crochets. Chain 1 and then flip it so I can just grab that little spot. I've almost flipped to the back side here. It just makes it a little bit easier because then we'll work 5 double crochets around that chain, double crochet. And then if I flip it over, you can see that that is a completed row 6. So now the last question I would usually get is how would I finish this out? Because again, you do like to pinch these together. So what I would usually do if I were finishing this out is I would chain 1 and I would turn. I would come to this gap right here. I'd put 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and 2. I would chain 2. I would come over here to that skipped double crochet set, and instead of putting a double crochet, I would just put 2 single crochets there, again making sure that I'm pinning down that chain 1 space in between my scales. I would chain 2, put 2 single crochets into the gap there in that scale. So basically it's like those foundation rows, only I'm doing single crochets rather than a double crochet. Now this is the way that I finish it off. I'm sure other people have different methods of finishing off the crocodile stitch. It really just kind of works or depends on what works for you. But this works for me to create one of those foundation rows only using single crochets rather than double crochets. I just found it the easiest. So again, I'm putting 2 single crochets in the gap, chain 2, come over here, put 2 single crochets in between these double crochets, making sure I'm picking up that chain 1, and we're gonna go 1, 2, I would chain 2, I'd come over and put 2 into this gap right here, and then I would chain 1 here at the very end, and I'd come over and into this stitch right here in the top corner of that scale, I would place a regular single crochet. And then I would just cut off my yarn and fasten off and all that good stuff. And this is what it looks like there when I'm done with that row. That just kind of anchors everything in, gives a little bit more of a neater edge, and that completes that kind of finishing off row that I like to do. And that's the crocodile stitch and crochet. I know it's a little bit more time consuming, a little more detailed. I mean, it has your basic stitches, but creating the scales is a little bit more tricky, and that's what makes it a little bit more of an advanced stitch. So I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit the bell so you get notifications of when I post new videos. And I hope you guys have a blessed day.